You know your mom gets really mad at me, Damonza, when I call you an idiot? Like real mad.
Okay, that makes me sad that she gets mad about it because like that, oh gosh. That might imply that I might actually be an idiot. And she's like, don't call him an idiot.
No, that's not true, but that's funny.
I feel like I'm smart when it comes to wait, what's that look, man?
No, I just wanted to hear where the sentence was going. I'm just really excited to hear where the sentence is going.
I'm smart when necessary, There are some things that, you live and you learn. There are a lot of things that I've done that make me look like an idiot that won't be done again.
Yeah, exactly right. You just don't make the same mistake multiple times. That's true. Given some of your choices and situations, the fact that you found yourself in, the fact that you're alive speaks to a pretty high level of intelligence. Welcome in. It is episode 15 of the What's Right with Nick Wright podcast and YouTube show. As I ask you every week, please, if you're listening or watching right now, click the subscribe button on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube, wherever you're watching us. Also a reminder, we are continuing our countdown of the 50 greatest players in the last 50 years in the NBA. Those special episodes come out every Sunday. We are now into the top 35 players of the last 50 years in the NBA. And so it's a project I've been working on for years. It is so exciting, to finally be able to release it to you. Also, you might notice here in a moment, where the setup's a little different today. I am doing this show today from Los Angeles, which means for the first time ever in the short history of the What's Right with Nick Wright podcast, my co-host sidekick son, Damonza, is not in the same room as me. He is back at the house in New York City. He is sitting in the big chair today. He is very happy about this, maybe a little too happy about this. We will discuss that in just a moment, but we've already shown him on camera earlier than we should have. I feel like it's all going to his head. So now let's get to what we are not discussing on today's show. What did not make the cut for today's show is Jake Paul fighting in August. I don't know if Jake Paul will ever make this show. Malik Willis sliding in the draft, and the fellow who announced the Vikings pick might still be talking. I don't blame the guy. This is your moment in the sun. Take your 15 minutes, take the full 15 minutes. However, Damonza, I now, instead of turning my chair towards you, just look right into the camera and the screen beneath it and ask you, what are we starting with today?
So, Celtics lose game 1 to the Bucks.
Oh, say it again.
Obviously.
Say it again, buddy.
Unfortunately,
what happened game
they
1?
lost game 1.
Yeah, they did.
Giannis was just great.
Yep.
Our bet isn't looking too great. I might have to, recall on that one.
Uh-huh.
You tweeted that the Nets were so overrated that the Celtics looked overrated for sweeping them.
Yep.
I know you've given Giannis his love all year, but even you got to admit, man, you did not think he could beat the Celtics alone.
Well, you didn't have to beat him alone. Drew Holiday's better than Kyrie Irving come the playoffs, and Drew Holiday helped out, and they're a deep team. And here's the deal. The Nets have been a Ponzi scheme for a couple of years. And as often happens with Ponzi schemes, there's a lot of people that are innocent victims. The innocent victims in this case was the betting public that bet the Celtics at minus 200 to win the series, like total dopes. And my colleagues in the media that were installing the Celtics as favorites because they were treating the Celtics like the Celtics had just swept a really good team, as opposed to sweeping a mediocre team. The Nets have been the Hawks for 2 years now. Maybe the Hawks have had more success. No one but me wants to acknowledge it. So why am I still talking about the Nets? Because the Nets were as much at fault for the Celtics losing game 1 as Jaylen Brown was. And by the way, Damonza, as a little shout out to you and the Celtics, I am wearing a shirt with a little 4-leaf clover on it, but that's as much Celtics love as you're going to get from me today, because here's the deal. The Celtics made the second fewest 2-point baskets any team has ever made in NBA playoff history. They only made 10 twos. You might say,
they also made a lot of threes.
They made a lot of threes, but that's what Milwaukee wants you to do. Milwaukee, the last 2 times they've played Boston, both games, Boston has shot 53s. And you might say, well, in today's NBA, that should work. It could work. But Milwaukee is so good at rim protection and so good at not fouling that if you're not getting free throws, you're not getting layups, you better be on fire from three. And they hit 18 of them and got blown out. They hit 18 threes and didn't score 90 points. And this is no different than playing a video game and playing on rookie mode and then all of a sudden going to all Madden. You're not ready for the degree of difficulty jump. So Boston played a team in round one that had no rim protection. The Bucks have the best rim protection in basketball. They played a team in round one that takes the worst shots imaginable. Milwaukee takes nothing but good shots. And in round one, they played a team that has no offensive game plan. The Bucks know exactly what they want to do. So in a game where Giannis goes 9 for 25, Boston still gets blown out. And so I'm telling you this much, pal. It is a must-win game two for Boston. If Boston goes down 0-2 at home, this thing is over before it starts. So it is a must-win game two. Jaylen Brown will be better. Marcus Smart might be better. But the worry for Boston is Giannis didn't have some explosion. But Giannis is to this point in his career where he can have a bad shooting night and still be the best player on the court by a mile. Control every facet of the game. Bonus take, Damonza, and I want your opinion on this before we move on.
Okay.
The alley-oop to himself. Now, you're a guy who one of your best traits basketball-wise was your athleticism, your leaping ability. Right. You're tall for regular humans, not super tall for basketball players. You're 6'3", 6'4". Giannis is 6'11".
Right.
Am I crazy for thinking that alley-oop to himself should be a part of their regular playbook? I don't know who can guard it. If he gets midway down the paint and throws it that high off the backboard to himself, I think that should not just be a break glass in case of emergency play. I think they should do that twice a game. What's your opinion on that? As someone that could execute that play.
It looked pretty easy. And I saw the way Jason Tatum was looking after that happened. It definitely seemed like it kind of took them out of the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, how easily he executed it, yes. I mean, that should be a thing that they do more often.
If Robert Williams isn't in the game, if the tallest Celtic defender is Al Horford, who can't jump, then I think you got to do that. I think that's actually like a little hack of a great way to get 2 points. All right, what's next? What are we doing now? And I'm going to hit the clock today through hell or high water. If you're watching, we have 10 minutes on the clock. I'm going to hit it. Go ahead. What's next? What are we doing now?
The Warriors win game one against the Grizzlies.
Yep.
Even with Draymond getting ejected, Jordan Poole went crazy. Ja Morant is going to have to, but Memphis, still stayed in the game. Mm-hmm. Ja Morant's going to have to play some of his best basketball if they want to win the series.
Yep.
But, he's still super young, but he's the best player on a 2 seed. What are realistic expectations for Ja Morant in this series?
I think he lived up to him in game one. I thought he was excellent in game one. He missed the potential game-winning layup, but what was he, 34, 9, and 10? I think no, I'm serious. I'm not being sarcastic about this. I think that
okay.
I picked Grizzlies to go to the conference finals before the playoffs. I started feeling terrible about that pick midway through their series against the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves are just they just play such a dumb brand of basketball that it overshadowed the fact Memphis didn't execute great at the end of those games. And yesterday, how did they execute at the end? They're up 3, Klay Thompson open 3. 39 seconds left after the Klay Thompson 3. They don't push the basketball. They don't get a 2-for-1. Instead, Ja gets stripped. Now, I did like the play they ran at the very end of the game, but they should have had more time than that, than 3.6 seconds. But they took forever to commit the fouls because they had to commit 2 just to get in that spot. And they got, if we're being honest, very lucky Klay Thompson missed both free throws. Here's the other big concern for Memphis. They didn't out-offensive rebound Golden State. That is their one clear-cut advantage. Well, 2, pardon me. They have 2 clear-cut advantages. One is, with Klay being where he is at this point in his career, there is no one on Golden State that can stay in front of Ja. But the other clear-cut advantage has to be offensive rebounding, but I'm really worried about Memphis. Memphis had to find a way to steal that game that they had no business winning. But Draymond got ejected. Steph wasn't very good. Klay wasn't very good. Ja scored 30. Jaren Jackson had the best game he'll have all series, and they still lost. So I'm Memphis. I'm incredibly concerned that this series could get out of hand quickly, but I think Ja, through game one at least, is doing about everything you could have asked of him. All right, what's next?
Fair point. Taping before game one of Philly and Miami. Joel Embiid is going to miss a few games because of his face injury.
Yep.
This could have all been avoided if they just won the series in 4 to 5 games. But,
true.
you know, they still got Harden, and that's exactly why he's there. Is it crazy to think that Philly could still win this series? And how much blame does Doc get for leaving Embiid in during a blowout and that leading to an injury?
Yes, let me defend Doc Rivers for a moment here, because this is the definition of Monday morning quarterbacking stuff. Because we all, or a lot of us in the media who have TV shows, were on TV Friday, and none of us were criticizing Doc Rivers because we didn't know Embiid had got hurt. Nobody was like, by the way, why was Joel Embiid in that game? It's only after you find out later in the day that Embiid's hurt, they're like, oh, it was so dumb to have him in the game. The Raptors starters were in. I'm fine with Embiid being in. This is bad luck. But to your original question, yeah, I think the media is overrating it. Let me restate it. I think Philly's got a better chance than the media is giving them. I don't know if you saw, ESPN has 20 NBA writers pick every series. All 20 picked Golden State. All 20 picked Phoenix. All 20 picked Miami. And the only one that was split was Celtics Bucks, and 13 of the 20 picked the Celtics, by the way. But if the first two were in Philly, I would feel like this would be worse for the Sixers because you need to win your home games. But in a 1-4 matchup, if you're the road team and you fall down 0-2, then you go home for the next two. So even if they lose these two games without Joel Embiid, because I think he'll be back by game 3, they're alive. But the idea that they have no chance to get a split against a Miami team that's pretty banged up themselves, I think that's crazy. I think they do need one throwback Harden performance. But when I say throwback, I don't mean to 4 years ago. I mean to 4 weeks ago. Harden, his first 2 games with the Sixers was outstanding. And he was very good in game 6, by the way, against the Raptors. So I picked the Sixers before the playoffs to be in the conference finals. I'll stick with it, assuming Embiid's back by game 3. And I think there's a very real chance that they steal a game in Miami. Maybe they steal this one tonight, but maybe by the time you hear this, it's 1-0 Philly. But even if it's not, I think they're alive. All right, I said I was going to hit the clock. Don't have a lot of time left. What's next, Damonza?
Oh, God. Chris Paul had one of the most amazing playoff games ever. Yep. Devin Booker is back. Yeah. The Mavs barely beat Utah. Your case is that Luka's experience in Slovenia in the Euro League counts towards the NBA playoffs. Yeah. Since we're taping before game 1, this is your last chance. You can take back your pick of the Mavs, but this is the last time that I'll allow it.
No, why would I want to take it back? Luka is currently the second best basketball player alive. It is Giannis 1, Luka 2, and a fight for third. He is the best player on his side of the bracket. He will be the best player in this series. And by the time people hear and see this, he probably will have already dropped 40 in game 1. The Mavs are going to the finals, and we'll be right back. Welcome back in What's Right with Nick Wright podcast and YouTube show, along with my co-host, who is not an idiot, Damonza. Damonza, what are we starting with for the second segment of today's show?
Start off with some mad quarterbacks. Yeah. Lamar Jackson was pissed when Baltimore traded Hollywood Brown. Yeah. And Green Bay passed on a wide receiver in round 1 again. Mm-hmm. It feels like Green Bay and the Ravens are purposely trying to piss their quarterbacks off. Mm-hmm. Should teams be more focused on making their franchise players happy?
So listen, in certain situations, yes. In these two specific situations, no. So you know how the Packers made Aaron Rodgers happy? They gave him all the money he wanted. We learned this whole thing was about money, power, respect. He wasn't getting the power, so they gave him the money to show him the respect, and now they're going to run the team how they see fit. A lot of people thought they're going to draft a receiver in round 1. Rodgers told McAfee, hey, I knew who they were targeting in round 1. Once those guys weren't available, I wasn't surprised they didn't get him. Now, the draft nicks will tell you that the Packers reached on that linebacker in round 1, so maybe that should be a little concerning. And then the Packers didn't, they actually reached with their first 2 picks because they, of course, had the extra pick thanks to the Davante Adams trade. Maybe that's concerning, but I think Rodgers is perfectly content given the fact he got paid. The Lamar Jackson, Hollywood Brown thing is very simple. The Cardinals got fleeced, giving up the 23rd pick of the draft for a guy who is not one of the 23 best receivers in football is such a total win for Baltimore. They need to communicate that to Lamar. What was weird was that Lamar, according to Hollywood Brown, he told Lamar he didn't want to be there. Lamar knew that Hollywood wanted a trade, and Lamar still seemed all shocked by it. And so, but they've got to sit Lamar down and say, we are one of, if not the best run franchise in the NFL. With our first round pick, we got a guy who could have been a top 5 pick in Kyle Hamilton, the safety from Notre Dame. With our second first round pick, instead of a third, fourth tier wide receiver in Hollywood Brown, who is about to become more expensive, we got a center who could be the starting center here for the next 10 years. Center is the safest position to draft in the first round historically. Centers that go in the first round, 100% of them, I heard this during the draft, have gotten a second contract in this league over the last 20 years, which means there have been 0 true busts. And you just got to tell Lamar, like, if A.J. Brown nets the 18th pick, the fact of the matter is that you could get the 23rd pick for Hollywood Brown is just, it shows that the Cardinals don't know what they're doing. The Cardinals are an example, if you ask me, of a team trying too hard to appease their quarterback. I think that Kyler Murray wanted Hollywood Brown, so they went out and got him, and they paid 180 cents on the dollar for him. And so I think that there are certain star players you need to acquiesce to their demands. These 2 specific instances, I understand what the teams did, particularly the one in Baltimore. I think that was very simple. Arizona called up and said, we want to give you the 23rd pick for Hollywood Brown. And Baltimore, Eric DeCosta in Baltimore said, deal, no takebacks, call over, send it in. You don't wait on them to reconsider that. All right, now I think we're playing a game, this or that. Damonza, what's first up?
Patriots drafted a quarterback in the 4th round who also sets the records for most passing yards in FBS history.
Yep.
Mac Jones should be worried or not worried.
Oh, he should be worried. He should be worried because no matter what, this is a bad sign. The first option is the Patriots are not sold on Mac Jones and they want some Mac Jones insurance. That's not a good sign. The second option is they're trying to motivate him, trying to add a little chip on his shoulder, like, hey, Mac, maybe a little less time in the trademark office and practicing your gritty and a little more time grinding tape. That wouldn't be a good sign. Option 3 is the one I think. The Patriots flatly just don't know what they're doing. That they're a terrible drafting team. That Belichick has lost his fastball and his slider and his changeup when it comes to the draft. None of their picks made sense according to the people listen, I'm not someone that has their own mock draft, but I know what the mock drafts say. I know what the supposed experts on TV say, and they were all unanimous that the Patriots had the biggest reach of the first round, a massive reach in round 2. And I loved the fact that my Chiefs made 2 separate draft day trades with the Patriots because I look at the Patriots as the sucker at the poker table. You want to keep doing business with him. You want to keep getting in hands with him. And so I think the Patriots they did this a lot with Brady, where they would use mid-round picks on quarterbacks that aside from at the Jimmy G, you could say panned out. Jacoby Brissett, I guess you could say panned out kind of, but neither one did anything for New England except for the 4 games when Brady was suspended for cheating. And the Patriots got back for Jimmy G what they had invested in Jimmy G. And for Jacoby, they got back less than what they had invested in him. I don't think we talked about this last week. I think using mid-round picks on quarterbacks is almost always a fool's errand. And Warren Sharp tweeted, this is just the 3rd time in the last 30 or 20 years that a team has spent a top 15 pick on a quarterback and the very next year spent a first 4-round pick on a quarterback. The other 2 times it's happened was Josh Rosen, who went 10th overall, and then the Cardinals totally gave up on him and took Kyler number 1, so that's different. And the Texans, when they took David Carr number 1 overall, and then Dave Ragone in the 4th round 20-some years ago, and that was, that was the Texans, not a well-run team. So I think Mac should be worried because it's either because they don't believe in him, they want to add motivation, which he shouldn't need to have added, or they don't know what they're doing. I think it's they don't know what they're doing. All right, what's next?
I hope Mac Jones hears that.
Yeah,
but choose to give a pep talk to one. Karl-Anthony Towns or Baker Mayfield?
Oh, I give one to Baker. I don't think Karl-Anthony Towns needs a pep talk. I think Karl-Anthony Towns needs a stern lecture. I think Karl-Anthony Towns. Now, I am sympathetic to Karl-Anthony Towns because during COVID, his family was decimated by COVID, and he had to deal with so much death and so much loss that I'm sympathetic to him as a person. But on the court, his lack of maturity is so jarring. And the preening is silly. His lack of understanding of time score situation. That three he took with 3-some minutes left will just resonate in my brain for weeks to go in the NBA playoffs. So Karl-Anthony Towns, I just think, buddy, you just finished year 7. You're bad on defense. You take dumb shots. Baker needs a pep talk because this thing looks like it's going to drag on even longer. And this is an uncomfortable situation. At this point, I wonder if the Browns are trying to get some clarity on what if post, Major League Baseball just suspended Trevor Bauer for 2 years. What if the Browns are now worried? What if the NFL doesn't suspend Deshaun for 6 games or 8 games or even 10 games? What if they suspend Deshaun for a full season? Do we actually need Baker to play next year? Like, whatever it is, it's not a great situation for Baker Mayfield. So he's the one I would give the pep talk to. All right, what's next?
Poor guy. Stranger moment. Odell reporting Debo to New England or Draymond celebrating his ejection?
Listen, Odell was just being a goofball on Twitter. Draymond's total mental break after being ejected was, it was vindication for the officials. Draymond's out here saying it's a reputation penalty. Maybe a little bit. But the other reason you got a flagrant 2 was probably because you committed 2 flagrant 1s on the same play. You whacked him in the face, that's a flagrant 1. You grabbed his jersey and pulled him down, that could be a flagrant 1. And if the refs had any type of, question about, is this right to kick him out, the fact that he ran around the court like a total maniac vindicated their decision. But here's the other thing that matters. Draymond Green, when he was suspended for Game 5 of the NBA Finals in 2016. Here's what happened. He got a flagrant 2 at the end of a round 1 game against the Rockets for body slamming Michael Beasley. That's 2 flagrant foul points. At 4, you get suspended. He got a flagrant 1 for kicking Steven Adams in the groin in the conference finals. And then in Game 4 of the finals, he punched at LeBron's groin, got a flagrant for that. That he didn't get suspended for what he did to LeBron. He got suspended because it was his 4th flagrant foul point. Well, now he has 2 flagrant foul points, 2 more, and he's suspended. I got a question for you. You don't think Chris Paul or Luka Doncic, 2 of the most irritating, talking players in the whole league, are going to get under Draymond's skin to the point to where he takes a swipe at one of them? I would bet he does. And so Draymond, did not learn from that lesson. And this whole, woe is me. I would argue Draymond's rep works in his favor when it comes to his ability to scream at officials. He gets away with what would be technical fouls for 95% of players in the league because, that's just Draymond being Draymond. So, but I thought his reaction after being ejected was total lunacy. All right, what's next?
Best dad, Ja's dad or Jeremy Ruckert's dad, who went absolutely nuts after he got drafted by the Nets?
I think they're both great dads, but T. Morant seems to be a ton of fun. And I loved that when T. Morant was asked after Game 6 by a local reporter about what he thought of Ja's performance, he's like, Ja was trash this game. And Ja has said that my dad's my biggest hater. And he was showing it there. I love the fact that he's courtside for all these games. If you know their story, he poured so much time and energy into his son. And the fact that he now gets to watch him on this stage, I think is so exciting. So I give him, listen, Jeremy Ruckert's dad, that moment was great too, but I'll give it to T. Morant. We'll be right back with a story about me hitting a parked car.
Sweet.
All right, welcome back in. Final segment, What's Right with Nick Wright podcast. Please like, rate, subscribe, review, and check out our weekly series that comes out every Sunday on YouTube and on your podcast feeds, the 50 greatest players of the last 50 years. So, Damonza, this is such a bad beat for me in every way possible. So let me give a little context here, okay? So, I don't know if we talked about it on the show, like 6 months ago, your mom gave me a hard time about the car needing new tires. And I was like, we do not need new tires. We just got the car. You're wrong. And then like a week later, I was driving with her and one of our tires went flat. And she was like, oh, we don't need new tires. So then I made an appointment to buy 4 new tires. And between then and when we got the new tires, another tire went flat. But when she was driving, you remember that? And it was like, she just
you got out of the car and fixed it. Like
I got out of the car and fixed it the first time. Then I had to go fix it the second time. Whole thing was a disaster. And the biggest disaster was I argued with your mom about something and then was just proven dead ass wrong. And I hit the clock for segments 1 and 2. I'm going to need a little extra time for this one. So, like a week ago, man, your mom and I are driving. Because you know, when she and I are in the car, I drive 100% of the time. So a week ago, your mom and I are driving. And she does what she loves to do, which is tell me about my bad driving. And I just couldn't take it anymore. And I was like, you know what? I think I don't want to fight. I think, though, I'm going to take a break from driving. I think I'll start being the passenger. Like, you don't like how I drive. I'd rather just chill anyway. She's like, oh, she just
like, insulted you out of the passenger.
Just insulted at me out of driving. And I'm like, I don't want to fight. But that, of course, leads to not a fight, but a discussion, right? And at one point during the discussion, I'm like, babe, we've been together almost 15 years. I've never been in a car accident. I was like, do you think that's just luck? And she said, basically, yes, I do think it's luck. Because she's been in a few. And I don't say anything about her driving. She's like, yeah, I do think it's luck. I think you're a bad driver. And you're just lucky you don't get in accidents. I'm like, okay. I think my record speaks for itself. That was 1 week ago. All right.
Welcome to the team.
We'll fast forward to yesterday. So I, on Saturday night, had a few cocktails with, I'm not going to name names, but someone I work with here at Fox. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to leave my car at his house and Uber back to the hotel because I've been drinking.
Smart man.
And do the responsible thing. So Sunday morning rolls around. I wake up. I Uber to my buddy's house. I don't knock on his door or anything. I just Uber to where my car is. Make a U-turn in this residential street. I am 20 feet from where the car was originally parked, going in the other direction. Because I've made the U-turn, I'm kind of like, over on the other side of the street. And a damn cat darts into the street. And instead of stopping, I try to swerve. And I just crush this $100,000 BMW parked on the side of the road. I mean, I'm driving this Jeep and I just nail it and like almost drive up on the car. Bang my head on the steering wheel, the whole 9. It's a loud enough collision that my coworker heard it from his house, didn't know it was me, came outside in his pajamas. And I'm in the street having wrecked his neighbor's car.
Okay.
And so now I'm driving a rental.
You got some money problems now at this point, I assume.
Well, let's be honest. I'm not having money problems, but there will be a financial penalty associated with this because I mess up this dude's car. I'm in the rental. I didn't get the insurance on the rental because those things are a scam. Like my car insurance follows me, but I'm sure it's not going to be an easy process. I'm sure. And so this happened yesterday. I've contacted and connected with, cuz by the way, I couldn't find the guy whose car it was. I knocked on every door in the neighborhood. So I just left a note on the windshield and left my number with someone who was walking down the street because they said they knew the person. So I've gotten in contact with him and sent that person all my info. So I know like that's going to be taken care of. But I haven't even called the car rental place yet. I don't even know what to tell them.
You just got a messed up Jeep right now. How bad's the Jeep?
It's not great, buddy. It's not great. None of it's great. I mean, it's and the car I hit was not what we'd call a cheap car. It's not gonna. I'm not gonna be able to pull the old Damonza, which is, hey, how about we meet and I give you $1,500 in a parking lot? It probably pays for the vehicle. That ain't gonna fly here. This is gonna be a real thing that is impacting my life now. And the worst part of all of it, worse than the money, worse than any of it, is that your mom now, oh God, gets to be like, oh, you don't get in wrecks, huh? You just hit parked cars. And as soon as I was supposed to pick her up from the airport. That's what I was doing. I was on my way to pick her up from the airport. And I had to text her and tell her, you got to Uber. Oh, you don't want to get up? I'm like, no, I got up. But the cars, it's drivable-ish. So, yeah. So that's been part of my trip to LA.
Pretty soon, you're going to be a 2 and 3 train type of guy.
Oh, a callback to how me roasting you when you're trying to get the Dodge Challenger. That's a great thing. You know what? You get the walk-off line. You're sitting in the big seat today. You get the walk-off line. That's today's show.
Range Rover privileges revoked.
Hey, thanks for watching. Smash or just lightly tap that subscribe button. It all works the same. To get more from the show, and make sure you click. Why don't you want to mash the bell too, guys? Or just, lightly tap the bell to get notified every time new content drops. Check out full episodes of What's Right wherever you get your podcasts, or just hit the link in the description below.